This isn't just a story about an insurance claim. This is a confession whispered from me to you, like a secret told between women. It's about being lied to, about a system designed to fail when you're at your most vulnerable, and about the heartbreaking cost of a promise broken. It all started, as these things often do, with trying to be responsible. My husband David and I were in our late 40s. He was a high school history teacher, and I was a librarian. We weren't rich, but we were planners. I can still see him at our little kitchen table, the one with the slight wobble, surrounded by the beautiful chaos of our life. The mismatched mugs we'd collected over the years, the constant low hum of the refrigerator, the smell of his morning toast and brewing coffee filling the air. We'd talk about the future, and our laughter would echo over the creak of those old wooden chairs. Our dreams were simple. Our biggest goal was independence. It was about never, ever having to be a burden on our children. I still remember the financial advisor spreading brochures across that same table. Long-term care insurance, he said, was the third pillar of a secure retirement. He painted a picture of a future where sickness or old age wouldn't mean selling the house we raised our kids in. We wouldn't have to watch our savings vanish. The premiums seemed manageable then. David held my hand and said, "Think of it as my promise to you, honey. A love letter to your future. If I'm not here, this will make sure you're always safe." We signed on the dotted line, sealing that love letter into every premium check we'd send. As the years rolled by, the premiums kept climbing. David would sometimes grumble, "Are we sure this is worth it?" And I'd always say, "It's an investment in our peace of mind, David. It's your promise. I had to believe it." David passed away 7 years ago, and that policy, that promise, became his legacy. It was the last proof of his love, his need to make sure I'd always be okay. It was his final love letter. I thought I was protecting myself, but really, I was building the perfect trap. A few years after David died, I started noticing it. A tremor in my hand, a stiffness in my legs. I remember sitting in the doctor's office, gripping my purse so tightly my knuckles were white. The only sound was the slow, merciless ticking of the clock on the wall. Then, the silence when he spoke the word felt suffocating. "Parkinson's." It echoed endlessly in that small, quiet room, a door slamming shut on the life I knew. My home, once my sanctuary, became a house of obstacles. It was time to activate the promise. I made the call, and the woman on the phone was soothing, promising to start the process. A week later, the assessor came, a pleasant nurse whose smile felt like a carefully constructed trap. "You seem to be having a good day today," she said, her voice light and casual. Out of a lifetime of pride, I didn't want to seem helpless. "Yes, a better day," I replied, not realizing my own strength was being weaponized against me. She watched me walk to the kitchen, a short trip I managed with intense, trembling focus, and made a note. She didn't see the wave of exhaustion that hit me the moment I sat back down. She wasn't there to assess my need. She was there to find an excuse. Then came the silence. Weeks turned into a month. Finally, the letter arrived. My hands trembled as I scanned the page. The words hit like hammer blows. "Dear Mrs. Albright, we have determined that while you do exhibit some symptoms, you do not currently meet the policy's criteria. The assessment concluded that you are able to perform the activities of daily living with minimal, if any, assistance. Therefore, your claim for benefits is denied. Minimal assistance. It was a lie. 30 years of planning, 30 years of payments, all turned to ash. David's final love letter, his promise to keep me safe, had been betrayed. And if you think the denial was the worst of it, what came next nearly destroyed everything I had left. That denial letter was the starting gun. Parkinson's doesn't wait. Sarah, my daughter, flew in, her face a mask of anger and fear. We sat at that same dining room table, now covered in bills instead of brochures, and faced the brutal math. Home health aides cost thousands of dollars a month. The first withdrawal from my savings felt like a physical blow. I sat at my desk, my hand trembling as I signed the withdrawal slip, my eyes fixed on the photograph of David on the mantelpiece. It felt like I was betraying his memory myself. In 6 months, every penny was gone. So we moved to my 401k. The financial cost was only half of it. My relationship with Sarah became strained. Our phone calls, once filled with her stories about the grandkids, turned into hushed, anxious talks about dwindling bank balances. I could hear her kids playing in the background, a reminder of the joy her life should be filled with, instead of her mother's financial crisis. I was becoming the one thing I had sworn I would never be, a burden. That was when the next fear began to creep in. My home, once filled with the laughter of holiday gatherings and the scent of the garden David planted, now felt silent with dread. It was the last asset I had. Every memory it held was at risk of being sold off. My savings were gone, my retirement gutted. But what I feared losing most of all was still ahead. For weeks, I was lost. The idea of a fight felt impossible. But one night, on the phone with Sarah, I confessed I was thinking about selling the house. There was a long silence. Then her voice, firm and breaking with anger, came through the phone. "No, Mom. Dad made a promise to protect you. Now it's my turn. They are not going to win." Her promise echoed her father's, but this time it was a declaration of war. Her fire lit something in me. The next day, Sarah was online. I watched the glow of the computer screen illuminate her face late into the night, her tears of anger turning to resolve as she scrolled through forums, reading horror stories chillingly similar to mine. She was seeing this wasn't just a mistake. It was a business model. She found a small firm that specialized in bad faith claims. Making the call was nerve-wracking, but the lawyer, Mr. Chen, was the opposite of the insurance people. He had a firm, steady tone, and he was angry on my behalf. "Mrs. Albright," he said, "what you're describing is a classic pattern. It's a strategy some call deny, delay, and hope you die. They count on you giving up." That phrase landed like a thunderclap. We began the appeal. Sarah and I spent late nights at that kitchen table again. Once a place for planning dreams, it was now our war room, covered in medical records and legal briefs. We sent the massive appeal package. Then the real war began. A letter would arrive, and for a moment, hope would flicker, only to be extinguished by a request for more information. Then another demand for an independent exam. The back and forth dragged on for nearly a year of me paying for care out of my shrinking 401k. We were refusing to surrender. After almost 18 months, a thick envelope came from Mr. Chen's office. I sat in the quiet house, hearing only the creak of the floorboards, and opened it. My heart pounded. It was a settlement offer. Staring down a bad faith lawsuit, the insurance company had finally blinked. The resolution was bittersweet. They agreed to reinstate my policy and pay my benefits going forward. I held the letter, feeling it was both salvation and a symbol of betrayal, and the weight of David's absence was heavy in the room. I had won, but the scars were permanent. My savings were gone, my 401k was damaged. But through this nightmare, I learned hard lessons. First, your policy is a legal contract written to protect them. How many of us trust the fine print, believing it's protection, when really it's a trap? I learned this when they tried to deny my claim based on a definition of bathing so narrow it meant I had to be physically unable to even hold a washcloth. You have to know the definitions they will use against you. Second, document everything. My diary of daily struggles, which I started after the denial, became crucial evidence. The diary entry detailing how I fell trying to get dressed was more powerful than any doctor's note. Have a loved one there for the assessment. They are not your friend. They are an investigator. Third, a denial is their opening move. Mr. Chen told me a huge percentage of people give up. They are counting on you being too tired and sick to fight. Don't be one of them. Finally, get expert help. I am a witness now. I did everything right, and the system still failed me. But I'm not just a victim anymore. I'm a survivor, carrying the torch for those too tired to fight. This experience taught me that we have to be fierce advocates for ourselves and the women we love. My fight is over, but for so many others, it's just beginning. This is my invitation to you to join me at this kitchen table. Let's create a circle of women, a sisterhood. If you or someone you love has had a promise broken by one of these companies, please share your story in the comments. Don't just share the facts. Share the memory of the promise that was made. The husband who wanted to protect his wife. The advisor who promised peace of mind. Share how it felt. By turning our individual heartbreaks into a collective voice, we can become a force they can no longer afford to ignore. Thank you for listening. Please subscribe, because this isn't the only kind of retirement horror story out there. Watch this next for another gripping tale of retirement gone wrong, plus the lesson you can't afford to miss.